Good. Keep on, as you said, keep on eating, but don't chew loud, okay? Yeah. I was wondering, I make a lot of speeches, as I said, usually large groups. There's a ballroom, there's a meeting, a business meeting, and there's 800 people in the room. And tonight, I got this total different feeling. When you speak, and then I'm invited to a specific speak about leadership, or speak about organizational excellence, or speak about service delivery or customer satisfaction. That was not so tonight. So I come here tonight, and this is like a family feeling. So I thought I'm not going to make a speech like usual. I make kind of more personal. So give you a little bit more of my personal background and how it fits into business. Of course, I will touch on that. So as I said, I was born in a small village, small town in Germany. And when I was 11 years old, I went to my parents and I said, I would like to work in the hotel business. They said, yeah. Because 11 years old. And there was no hotel in the village. I had never been in a hotel. I had, in fact, never been in a restaurant before. That was after war years. During the war, there was no restaurant. And right after war years, there was no money. So, but for some reason, I came up with the idea. I don't know why. I must have read something. After my parents said yes, I kept on begging. I want to work in a hotel. I kept on begging. And finally, my grandfather was embarrassed. He said, don't tell anybody. That's not what you did in Germany to be respected. You worked in a hands-on job. You did. If I would have said, I want to be a roofer, yeah, that's a fine handwork, very good. Or carpenter, or if I would have said engineer, oh my goodness, my parents would have danced on the table. So happy. That would have been the honor, or architect or something like that. But I want to work in a hotel. Finally, my parents inquired, and they said the best thing is in the government agency to start working in the best hotel that you can find a job in. And they found a job in the best hotel in the region. Unfortunately, that was 100 kilometers away. And that was very far at the time. So with 14, I left home. Lived in a dorm room in that hotel. Before I went there, though, my parents told me, understand, this is a hotel for very fine ladies and gentlemen. We could never go there. This would never be for us. I left with a little suitcase, the few clothes that we had, and with Psalm 91:4, because going for my confirmation 3 years to Bible class, that's very common. The pastor gives you the word for your life. It's hanging in my kitchen, by the way, in Atlanta. It's still with me. And it says very simply, I'm translating now, I know it in German, but I'm translating in a moment. He will take you under his wings in the Lutheran Bible, and your confidence will be under his pinions. His truth will be your shield and armor. That was with me, and my few clothes that I have, and I started in a hotel, and the next day, I didn't start, I arrived. The manager talked to us and said, the guests here are very important, ladies and gentlemen. I knew that already. Now you have to behave yourself accordingly. Don't get envious. You are here to learn how to serve them. Then I met the maitre d' who I actually reported to, and he changed my life in the next minute. And he said, okay, tomorrow morning, show up at 7 o'clock. If I meant 1 minute after 7, I would tell you so. 7 o'clock. That is German, real German that is. Let me tell you something. I mean, I really said that. If I meant 7 o'clock, and don't come to work. Don't come to work. He said, come here to be excellent in what you're doing. That went right over my head at the time, 14 years old. And I started working there. Once a week I went to hotel school. That's typical German too. Kids from all the area come to that school. So for the next 3.5 years I worked there as a busboy, assistant waiter, busboy. That meant at the time you washed dishes, you cleaned the floor, you did everything, you know. When I tell my kids that, that's how we work 12 to 16 hours. They say, oh, here he goes again. Yeah, but that's what we did at the time. Today you would be arrested. You would go to jail today for that. But I learned slowly what excellent meant. And then one day the teacher said, I went to school, for next week, bring an essay now that you're 2 years in the business. In the meantime, I learned what excellence is, because that Maitre D was a human being of excellence. He would have never done anything for less, the maximum, the best, on everything. But then write an essay what you now feel about the business. So going back to work, I worked, I mean, a big restaurant like that, and I was cleaning a table over, I'm not kidding you, I was cleaning a table over there, my back to the door, and I could feel he just entered the room, the Maitre D. You could feel it. He was a human being of excellence. And I turned around, and he approached the table over here. Now mind you, the guests were important ladies and gentlemen, and they were. He approached the table, and I could see, I have noticed it before, but it didn't hit me that way. I could see they were proud that he came to that table. Wait a minute. That's a reversal. They are the important ladies and gentlemen. We are the servants. But then I realized everybody in the room thinks he's the most important person in the room, employees and guests alike. And that night I was thinking about what to write for my essay. And I wrote an essay and I wrote about him. And I named it, We Are Ladies and Gentlemen. Serving ladies and gentlemen. We're not servants unless we sentence ourselves to be servants. Unless we don't create excellence what we're doing, then we sentence ourselves to be servants. But if we are excellent in serving, in that moment we define ourselves as ladies and gentlemen, serving ladies and gentlemen. And for the first time I realized there's a realization that I define myself at work. Literally, I realized, my goodness, where else would I possibly do it? Today, at the time, there was no TV. This just started to come out. Where do you define yourself? When you watch TV at home or when you're at work? So, and I came to the realization, so and I wrote that in an essay, and I named it Ladies and Gentlemen, Serving Ladies and Gentlemen. When I left, when I was finished my presentation, I went to work in a resort in Germany, and then I went on to Switzerland. And the last day I was there, the Maitre D said, look me in the eye, never go to work, always go to create excellence. I promised him that right there. I went on, was still very young, was 18, went on to work in Switzerland, worked on America for a while, went back to work in Switzerland, worked in Paris for 3 years, worked in London, got a job offer to come to the United States. Okay, if they would have said come to Nairobi, I would have gone too. But I went. I went through the proper paperwork. I'm a legal immigrant, so just so you know. Okay, so you got it. I'm legal. I went through proper paperwork. I went to the U.S. Young, partying, everything. I went to San Francisco. Where else would you go? And I had a furnished room in the Tenderloin district in San Francisco. Yeah, that's true. A terrible place. I worked in the Hilton as a room service waiter. I didn't come here to go long. I thought I'm going to stay a year and a half, and then I go back to Europe, go on with my career. But before I go back, I want to be promoted. I want to become room service supervisor. And I know that was the hotel to be, because a very large hotel. I worked in room service. The room service manager was German. I had an inn right there. And I knew I was by far the best waiter there. The other guys, they know what generally most waiters know. take an order and deliver food. But I knew the combination of food, what goes together, what beverage goes together, how does I know everything about it. I'm the only one left in the whole United States who does know all that, by the way. So, just an aside comment that is. So I knew all that. So I knew I would get promoted. The next time one of the supervisors, and there were 4, would get promoted, and I saw they were being promoted out to restaurant manager and so on, I would get that promotion. I knew that. And then I would stay for 6 months or 8 months, then I got back to Europe and so on. And sure enough, a few months later, the supervisor gets promoted to restaurant manager. There was my job. There was no question, this is my job. And I didn't get it. I heard the ego, I can tell you, the ego was absolutely seriously bruised. Stupidity of management very clearly. That's what goes through your mind. It took me a few months to admit the other guy deserved it more. It took me a few months. I was very young, as I said. I was partying a lot at the time. I worked late, I partied late, and I had to start at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I showed up only a few minutes late. No, not much late, only a few minutes. Big deal, 5 minutes late. Big deal. And you know, if the manager asked to do a side job like folding napkins or something like that, I said, why me? Why not the others? The other guy was never late. He came in and smiled in the morning while I was frowning because I was so tired. He could see from 100 yards that I was tired. And the other guy said, I'm happy to do this. When I came to that realization, I went back to my little furnished room and talked to my maitre d'. He had passed away. He didn't show up, but I talked with him. And I told him, I promised you I would never go to work, and I'm going to work for a few years now. I'm sorry. It will never, ever happen again. Never, ever happen again. I knew I had to process myself so it would never happen again, but I did. From there on, I didn't go to work anymore. And my career took off like a rocket ship. I worked was promoted, went on, went with them stayed with Hilton for a little while. I worked in a club in between, joined Hyatt as food and beverage director of the Hyatt Regency Chicago. After a year and a half, I became rooms director. After a year, I was promoted to general manager in Pittsburgh in a hotel. 2 years later, I was promoted to a much larger Hyatt in Detroit. 2 years later, I was promoted to regional vice president over 10 hotels. 2 years later, I was promoted to corporate vice president, operations for the United States, 65 hotels. I was working and I enjoyed it. In the meantime, got married to Sherry. There's other stuff in between that I won't tell you, but to Sherry, who I'm still married to, just figured out it's 43 years, not 40. Anyway, it's just a joke on the side, inside joke. 42 years, no kidding. And I don't only love her, I'm still in love. I will touch on that later. I'm still in love with her. So we got married, and I got a call. There's a new company being created in Atlanta. And they called me and said, we are developers and financial people. We need somebody to run the company, and you were recommended to us. I said, I have no interest. I have golden handcuffs. I love Chicago. Don't talk to me. A few days later, they called me again, and they said, coincidentally, you were recommended again. Now, we want to talk to you. Let's not say no, let's just sit down and talk. I said, no, I'm not going to, because it's useless. But then I started thinking, what would I do if I would take that job? They kind of said, look here, we are developers, we need somebody, and I started a silly conversation and said, well, what would my role be? Yeah, well, you be in charge. I said, you mean I could do what I want with the company? Sure. We are developers and financial people, you run the company. I said, but I'm not interested. Don't call me anymore. So then I talked to my wife and I said, you know, Sherry, if I would take the job, I would do this and this, I would do this. And I was just said, I think you're interested. I said, no, I'm just saying. And she started praying. that the right decision would be made, that the right door stay open and the wrong door will close. And I went to work, and they called me again, and I said, now I'm telling you, now I'm getting upset with you. Do not bother me anymore. I went to work, and something very negative happened that day. Came home that night, and they called again, and I said, we'll talk. And I moved to Atlanta to accept the job of this company that had 2 hotels in construction, no hotels, 2 in construction. I left 65 hotels that I was running basically to go to 2 hotels that were in construction. Left my golden handcuffs behind. If you don't know what it is, ask somebody. It's a lot of money, let me tell you. Left it behind, and I went to Atlanta. Now we prayed a lot on it. And the beginning was a disaster. First 2 years. After, I didn't tell Sherry because she had just had a baby. We couldn't sell our place in Chicago. We bought a new place. We had debts. We had a small child, and I didn't want to burden her with the fact that this was not working out. After 2 years, it became so bad, I had to tell her because the story was over. So I says, let's sit down, honey. I have to tell you, hold on to your chair. We made a mistake moving here. And she said, why would you argue with God? And I said, we prayed on it heavy. It was very clear. Why would you argue with God? And I said, I will never do that again in front of you. And and then she said, and that's the story where we're going into now. And then she said, you, the one that preaches to everybody to the point where it becomes unbearable to have vision and live up to your vision and not find excuses, not find apologies, but stay straight with the vision. Fall in the mud, stand up and go after the vision. That's what you preach to everybody, and you are now going against your own vision. You came here to create the finest hotel company in the world. And that's what I said to everybody. I'm going to Atlanta for one reason, to create the finest hotel company in the world. Purpose, vision. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I hired people, the first people, I said, don't come to work for me. Join me to create the finest hotel company in the world. People laughed. I said, wait a minute, we don't even have a hotel yet. I said, but the purpose of us working from now on and doing everything we do is for one reason, to create the finest hotel company in the world. And I said, and you? And I said, you're right. I got up, the next morning I pulled my people together and said, guess what? We're not going to think about anything else anymore but creating the finest hotel company in the world. My wife in the meantime had written a prayer that she prayed every day. When I left 19 years later, I tell you, I read that prayer to the staff of the organization. We were in close circles when I told people I'm leaving, I'm retiring. And people came to me, come on, Horst, that was not written nearly 20 years ago. That must have been written a few weeks ago, because everything she prayed on daily, and she put other people, other women from the company together to pray this daily. It all happened. It truly all happened. So we went from there, so back again. From there, we opened the first hotels. We opened another one. After a very short time, we were the best hotel company in the world, in America. And we continue to go forward, to go international and so on. The rest is history. But what did I have? What did I have in mind? To create the finest hotel company in the world. That is what I had in mind. But after I decided that, I went away to myself and agonized. And I truly did. Not simple answers. Said, is this vision, is this purpose of mine good for all concerned? Is it good for the organization, for the investors? Because if it is not, you have nothing. It has to be good for the investors, because if the company is not there, you have nothing. Is it good for the investors, for the company? Why? Yes, why? Why is it good for the investors? And I went through it. Next, It took me a whole day. I prayed on it. Went on, yes, it's good for the investor. Next, is this good? Would it be good for every customer if we're the best in the world? And will the journey be good, to that point be good for everybody? The answer was yes. Would it be good for the employees? Yes, would be good for the employees. Next, would it be good for society as a whole? And the answer was yes. In that moment, I knew I had to do it without compromise. But then I had to ask myself, would God approve? Would God approve? And I agonized about that. When I had the answer on all points, it was very clear what I had to do. I didn't have to think what to do anymore. I had to think, I have to concentrate, and I knew also I could not compromise. Not with anybody. And I had a couple of real good friends. I had to fire them. I cried, but I had no right to compromise for them. So from there on, it went on. Now what was that thought? And what excellence? I said from the beginning, and that changed my life. Come to work for excellence. Now of course we have to say, what is excellence? What is the vision of what is the vision of an organization? Excellence, I can tell you, if it is an organization or an individual, it doesn't matter. And the sad thing to me is when you talk to a group of people, you always think about a company. It's not about the company, it's about an individual. A company is nothing. Go in the middle, in 3 o'clock tonight, go to your dental place over there. Look if it is if it's a business or not. It's not. When you walk in and work tomorrow, then it's a business. So it's individuals that make a business, make a company. So excellence is never an accident. It's never an accident. It's always the result of high intent and hard work. What is our high intent as an individual? My high intent with Ritz Carlton was very simply, we will be the finest hotel company in the world and of great value to all concerned. That was the high intent. And then of course you have to work very hard and you have to figure out the processes and everything, how to get there, obviously. And I would touch on that a little bit. So now we had high intent. Now I had to say, how are we going to accomplish this? What is it really a good company is? Now to say, what is a good company? Well, good company, let's face it, any company, any business, let's pretend over there you see a lot of people. This is the market, your potential customers. This is your market. And then over here, there are also a lot of people. Those are your employees. Now, today we all talk a lot about alignment. What is alignment? Alignment is if I as an organization, as management, understand what that market is expecting from me. And I now make sure that all my employees understand what the market is expects from us and our product. What do they expect? Make sure that they really understand the employees. Make sure that they really know what that customer wants. Management now creates processes, systems, measurements, and controls to be sure it is delivered. But leadership creates an environment in which the employees want to do it and helps the employees to want to do it. But of course, great employee leaders do that themselves because they put high intent no matter what it is. One of my greatest mentors, the number, of course, that melody always is there, stands out. But one of the greatest is a guy by the name of Setu, and was catering manager at the time for the Hilton in Chicago. And I went to the dishwashing department, and the dishwashing department, which was always a mess with dirty stuff lying around, looked very clean. And there was a young man working behind the dishwasher, an Indian young man, and I watched him, and he was so organized, it was unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I watched him. And from there on, every day I went down to just watch him for a while. This dishwasher who did by himself better than 5 others, no kidding. And it looked better. It was unbelievable. I want to see I want to learn something from him. After a while, we needed a job in the pantry, which would have been a promotion for him. And I went to him, and I was excited to do that for him. I started in the meantime, get to know him, talk to him a lot and so on. Was excited to do that for him, got him together and so I said, "Dude, let's have a cup of coffee." He liked to drink a cup of coffee, sit down, drink his cup of coffee. "Let's drink a cup of coffee together." And I said, I got something for you. "Yes, Mr. Schulze." I said, "We have a promotion. You're going to work in the pantry." He said, "I cannot do that because I have not perfected my job yet." Wow. Wow, he was proud what he's doing, but he wanted to really be perfect. He was proud. He didn't wait. He didn't need others to tell him. He was leading himself. He had high intent for his particular job. So thinking about it as we started Ritz Carlton, I said, how am I going to make sure this is happening? Because, gosh, I want to grow. I want to be worldwide, which we end up to be. So we created, of course, processes how to better select people. We didn't hire people anymore. We selected people. We determined very careful what is the talent needed in each job. We studied that. We had an outside company help us. So when we learned how to interview to know if you have the talent or not and so on. So I knew I hire better than anybody else. So I was 5% already ahead of the competition. Then we made sure we aligned people to the company, not just to what the customer wants, which I just discussed, but align them to who we are as a company. So we created an orientation. In every Ritz Carlton that opened around the world, I went to do the orientation, if that was Shanghai, Berlin, Philadelphia, wherever. When we took over a hotel or opened a new, I went there to train employees and gave them the orientation and tell them, here is who we are. Don't come to work for us. Join us in our dream. We have a dream, and here's how that dream is good for you. There is the dream. Join us in that dream. The biggest thing that I can possibly give you is purpose. I give it to you. Now, individual leaders do that for themselves, but you have to help people as much as you can because some people don't know how to do that. So for me, it was just day one operation, and here's who we are. Join us. Don't come to work. But once you join us, you probably have to work more than anywhere else in a hotel. But join us. Don't come here for the job. Come here for excellence. Excellence is now an accident. So we try to hire excellent people. What is excellence in people? What is excellence in people? In a thing, it doesn't matter what that thing is, if it's your iPhone or what the thing is. Excellence is if it works well for what it was created. But in a human being, excellence is something different. Excellence is number one. If you as a person, do your very best. There's no perfection, but your very best in your functioning in your life. Number one. Number two, and I come back to that. Number two, if you do your very best in your relationships. Number three, if you do your very best in your morality and your integrity. And number four, in my opinion, if you do your very best in your spirituality. Now, your very best. But how do you do your very best? How do you know where you are? Well, you know it if you question yourself. And consequently improve yourself all the time. A company cannot stand still. If a company doesn't improve, it will die. But the individual too will go. You'll be lost in the morass of mediocrity if you don't improve yourself. So how do you improve yourself as a person? Of course, you can study, you can read books and so on. All that, I don't take away that. But I add to that. What about your functioning? In my opinion, if you don't stop at least once a month, the very least once a month, and question yourself, how could I do my job better? Let me ask you, don't answer me, but let me ask you, answer in your mind, have you worked very hard last year? Years ago, I was in a speech for Clement Stone, who was one of the speakers that everybody listened to 40 years ago, whatever. You wouldn't know me, all too young for that. And he asked that question, and I said, yeah, I worked very hard last year. But then he asked the next question, which I ask you now. Could you have worked a little more, a little better? And I had to answer yes in my mind. And so does everybody. So why don't we do it? Because we don't stop and ask ourselves, how could I do better in my functioning? And then don't look for a big answer. Tweak yourself and apply something that you clearly see where you could do better. And next is the big thing, relationship. How could I do better in my relationship? Are you doing your very best in a relationship? In fact, in your relationship, you should ask yourself 4 times a day, how could I have done better? How about when you walk by somebody? Why don't you question yourself, how could I say friendly hello? When you have a meeting, after the meeting, how could I have done that better? Because particularly, if you're in sales, for example, how about a sales meeting? You have to leave the sales. If you don't leave the sales meeting and say, how could I have done better? Then you will never be a great salesperson. Because if you said one word too many, you're obnoxious. If you said one word too little, you didn't seem to really care. So ask yourself several times, relationship. And I come back to that one again, because that's the big one. Morally, obviously you have to ask yourself. And obviously, you have to ask yourself spiritually, where am I? How am I growing? And you find all kind of answers, all kind of support system. But that spiritual piece, we talk about spirituality at work. Well, it's very simple. Why don't you question yourself in your functioning? How did you do it? How would God approve what you're doing? Now spirituality has come into your functioning. And move and question yourself, in particular in a relationship, how would God approve my relating to this person, to these people? Now suddenly, spirituality comes into a relationship. Clearly it has to be in your morality. There is no question about that. But that's the excellence in human beings. But let me go back to relationship. Relationship is everything, because you see, in your business, let me speak about your business now, the dental business, or anybody else here is in different business. A late survey shows, this is a fact, a late survey shows that the market as a whole, that means anybody that buys anything, 70% say that if I will buy your product, even if I know I can buy the same thing next door for less, if you give me good service and good attention, if you show me that you care for me, that's relationship right there. So relationship. Now think about a doctor's office. Now, what is your opinion about your doctor? You have a good opinion? Is that because of the medical decision he made, about which you have no darn idea whatsoever? It's because of the relationship you have. It's all relationship. And the opinion about an organization comes from the relationship, not the function. Now, there are 3 types of customers you have to understand. The dissatisfied customers. The dissatisfied customers, if you don't take care of them, they become terrorists against your company. Now, mind you, stop for a moment. Think about, this is very clear. If you think it, you have to 100% agree. But your reputation depends on the reputation of your company. I went to a speech Forbes magazine gives the 5-star award every year for the 5-star general manager from around the world, the best general manager from around the world. I was invited as a guest by Forbes. There were 500 people in the room. The Forbes guy gets up and said, Horst Schulze is in the room. And everybody stands up and screams, yeah, yeah, yeah. Wait a minute, were they applauding me? They were applauding the reputation of Ritz Carlton and Capella. That's why they weren't applauding me. My reputation comes from the reputation of the company, which was created from all people in the organization. What about them? What about the maid? But I can tell you that a Ritz Carlton maid that looks for a job now, and 100 others looking for that job, that maid gets it because she used to work for Ritz Carlton. Because of the reputation, you define yourself at work, with work. That's what you do. And you do to the greatest extent because of relationship. And the opinion about the company is about the relationship, what experience. Those are facts, they have been studied, clearly understood. So if I do those things right and I improve myself in a relationship, I bet you won't do it, because we all go right on. I know. Remember what I told you about in San Francisco? I have promised I will never go to work for work, yet I did it next, and it nearly messed up my career. If you all in this room, all that work for one company, make up your mind, actually would look at yourself 4 times a day for a while and tweak your relationships, you would be pretty soon you would know of the absolutely clearly finest organization in Texas. And who would benefit from it? Every single person, no question about it. And that is the spirit that we had, that we went into Ritz Carlton. Now it becomes very difficult. However, I had 50 hotels in 5 continents. When I was running the company, every one of our hotels in Africa, in Asia, 5 continents, was voted #1 in their market segment. So much so you can imagine how I feel about that. Because it didn't matter that I had all black staff in Africa or all Asian staff, and it didn't make any difference. It was all the same. Totally the same. It didn't matter that they were in Germany, or it was a little bit more difficult in the beginning because they're a little bit cynic. Oh, by the way, no kidding. So we took over a hotel there, and I told my human resource director, when we go there and all the employees sit there, all the Germans sit there, and I say, here's what we're doing, and pretty soon they all will sit there like that. And Owen, who was with me, all of a sudden they went like that. Owen said, how did you know? How did you know? I said, I know Germans. They said, oh, that's American BS. Well, pretty soon we had to show them that we believe it, and it became an exceptional hotel. It's all the same, no matter what culture, it's all the same. So much so for race and so much on culture. It's baloney, it's all the same. I worked with people. Oh, and what did the customer want? What did our customers want in Japan? They want us to care. What do you think they wanted us in Africa? They want us to care. What do you think they want in Philadelphia? They want us to respect them. And I said before, I told them before, recently I went to a speech, and they said, everything has changed, everything has changed. The baloney. The customer, guess what? Your customer, my guest, whatever you call them, the parishioner, everything, whatever you call them, they want to be respected. They want to be cared for. They want to be, and they're willing to pay more. They're saying 70%, we're willing to pay more for the same thing. And here's the crazy thing. Guess what the millennials say? And I see there are a lot of them in the room here. Guess what the millennials say? 80% of them say we're willing to pay more. But the millennials say, but you have to do it my way. Right? Because that's the difference in millennials. Be aware what the millennials want. Big studies have, look at what I tell you, all studies have been made all around that. What the millennials are saying, do it my way. We thought so too, but we didn't say it. When if I would go to a McDonald's, I would say, have a number one. The millennials goes and say, have a number one, but I take 2 slices, no matter half a pickle and this and my way. We have to know that. And when they come to work, they're saying, what's in it for me? Why wouldn't you tell them? Here's what's in it for you. If we become the best company, you will be respected. We will grow. You have opportunity. That's what's in it for me. Tell them what's in it for them. And that's what you get. And your individual, can each one of you look in the eye, your image, you define yourself by defining properly the company for which you work. And in each item, on each of the items, I went through those items. Those are the pieces of excellence. But if you work on yourself, and you question yourself, and you put spirituality, put God, put Jesus into the question yourself, well, how am I? You can't dismiss it. You're functioning something. Why would you take Christ out of that? Why would you not want to be growing in that? Why wouldn't you not question yourself? How can I do better? Why wouldn't you ask, how would Christ approve here? Why wouldn't you do that spiritually? Why wouldn't you? Because he made it very clear. The one thing he made very clear, love your neighbor as yourself. So why wouldn't you bring Christ in your relationship part with others? Why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we do that as we work for a company? And that's the spirit in which we created Capella and so on. Created Capella, and of course we were very careful to understand where we're going with each item, what our processes are. We measured everything very careful. I knew every day, I knew every morning, I knew only very few things in the company. But I knew 4 things I know. I knew the day's economics, of course. I knew the future indicators of business. And if they tweaked something, I was right on the telephone. I knew the customer, how many % of the customers said, we want to come back and we want to recommend you. And we, on top box, if you understand that, on a 1 on 10, it had to be a 10. And if it wasn't 92%, I interfered in the hotels. And I knew every day the employee satisfaction. Those was together. The employees, we call them ladies and gentlemen. And we told everyone always join us. And I believe today, the greatest gift that I gave them is purpose. Don't come to work for work. Come to work for something higher. Because we're human beings. The chair on which you're sitting is working. We're human beings. Why wouldn't we individually say, I am more? But why, as an organization, wouldn't I say, I offer you more? And that's what we clearly did and clearly worked on. We measured everything. We were involved with everything. We knew, and my threat to the hotels was, if your measurements go below the expectation, for example, customer satisfaction top, customer intent to return, not satisfaction, intent to return, intent to recommend. If it was below 92% and stayed below 92% for more than 2 months, I will move into the hotel and run the hotel, no matter where it is. And the general manager, you sit by and watch me doing it. And you don't say a word. You can't talk anymore. I'm the one. And nobody liked that idea. So, and I did it a couple of times. Of course, the manager's son quit. I didn't like that. But that's what I had to do. But I had to do it. I didn't have to think much about it. Because I knew being the best in the world would be good for all concerned. All concerned. Everybody will benefit. Everybody will get satisfaction out of it. Will be fulfillment. See, even Aristotle, 3,000 years ago, said, people cannot be fulfilled unless they have purpose and belonging. Now, as an organization, I can offer you that, or you can take it. It doesn't have to be offered. You can make your purpose at work, and you can say, I do it, I take that. I go and I have my purpose. That's what the mentor told me. He didn't say you have to have the purpose of the organization. He said you, for yourself, have to go to work for excellence, meaning purpose. And it fulfilled me. Adam Smith 300 years ago, anybody who studied business knows who Adam Smith is. 300 years ago, 300 years ago, he said, you need purpose and belonging. And he said to us as a business, don't give orders and directions. Give them objective, meaning purpose, and the motive of the objective. But how do we do it generally as businesses? How do we handle that? We still give orders and directions without explaining why we do it, without making them part of a purpose. So everything I said for the company, so that I didn't have no meeting whatsoever. When he came in the meeting, I said, okay, we're in this meeting, and everything we do is for the purpose of becoming the very best in the world. If for some reason that is this meeting or this function doesn't support that, we shouldn't be having it. Everybody starts thinking that. And so we selected the right employees. We oriented the right employees. We orient them right to who we are, what the customer thinks, and who they are, and how they belong. And then we trained them right. And then we maintained it right. We developed, in our training, we developed 20 points, which we trained them, which we determined if we do those 20 points better than anybody else in the business, we will be the world's best. So we taught them the second day they came to work. And then we gave them a little card, this card here, where those 20 points are written on, and who we are, what our vision is. And then we repeated one point every day, every single day. Today may be point 11. If you get a complaint, you own it. If you're the busboy and the guest complains about the TV, it's your TV. You then say, I'm sorry. You don't say them or what. You say, please forgive me that the TV didn't work. I will do something about it. And we empower them to do something about it. We empower them, they can do it, and you can do what you want. You can make, busboy, anybody can make a decision up to $2,000 to make sure that guest leaves happy. Ladies and gentlemen, if your guest has a complaint, here's the interesting thing. We know this all from studies. 96% of people who complain, you know what they want? They want only one thing. They want to get rid of their frustration. And if then the first person you tell it to, that first person said, I'm sorry, it's done. They don't want anything else. In fact, they're nearly embarrassed then that they did it. About 3+%, something really happened and amends have to be made. Now we admit to you, a fraction of customers, we call them, I'm going to admit something here, you may not want that, they were jerks. They just wanted to complain and wanted something. So when everybody came to me and said, well, some guests are not good, I said, okay, they're jerks. However, there's only one person in the company who can make that decision, and that's me. That is me. So if you have somebody that is, you keep on serving them as ladies and gentlemen, and you talk to me anytime, 24 hours. I had a 24-hour business, all over the world. You call me, and I make a decision if it is a jerk or not. Not anybody else. That's one thing I don't delegate. So I didn't delegate that. I didn't delegate the vision of the company. That I made sure that's it, and I didn't delegate the standards of the company. I cannot. I absolutely insisted on it. And we went on and we're growing and we became successful. My wife convinced me, finally, it's time to retire. I was traveling 250 days a year. It was time to retire. She picked me up with the kids. We had a glass champagne in the office. We left, cried, went home. I talked to my neighbor next day, who was more than 10 years younger than I am, and he retired too. And I said, why would you retire? And he said, so I can do what I like. I play golf, I play this. So on Monday I went to my wife and said, I'm going to do it one more time. And she said, you must be out of your mind. He said, you know, I want to do what I like, and I like to play hotels. So that's when I started Capella as an ultra luxury company, very ultra luxury. They're only some in Asia. They're growing now. I sold the company 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, and it's an ultra luxury company. And as I said, it's now voted best hotel company in the world. And it's a smaller, very fine hotel. But it's built on the same spirit and a lot of prayers. What we did at the same time, as we have 20 points that we repeat every day, that you cannot go to work without relearning so the point 11, if you get a complaint, you own it. In 20 days, it will be explained again. And we remind you, and 20 days later again and again and again, because we want to keep it front of mind. But at the same time, we have 20 prayers that you can sign up for. So we have it written in a book form, we give it in book form, or you could have looked at it online. I don't know if they still do it now. So we have also 20 prayers, because how can we intellectually, never mind spiritually, how can we intellectually give up the spiritual, give up to what we know is really in charge? So we had 20 prayers too. My wife sat down. I wrote down the first prayer. My wife sat down with various ladies from the company and wrote the prayers based on each subject. So not only do we have the do in your function, but also support and the do in the spiritual at the same time. I was recently, a couple of years ago, and recently it's 3 years ago now. I was in Africa. I was invited to make a number of speeches, a lot of speeches. I was in Uganda, and one day I made 9 speeches, and the next day non-stop to ministries, to businesses, and so on. In Swaziland, the same thing, and in South Africa, the same thing with all kind of companies. Guess what? There isn't one company I met with, or one ministry I met with, where they don't start with a prayer. And some of them with a hymn at the same time. And finish that way. Not one that I met in Africa. Why is it that we think that it's not necessary? We should be the ones that think it's necessary. We just read a book, Atheism is Dead. Atheism is Dead, where the greatest scientists in the world are now admitting there is a higher thinking. Or they don't admit that there was Jesus, but they admit at least they have come that far. Atheism is dead. And those are the intelligent people. And we're the educated and intelligent people. Why wouldn't we bring it into our life? And if the company doesn't do it, why wouldn't we do it individually? And connect. That's what I'm getting to. Connect the spiritual with your functioning. Functioning not only at work, generally. Connect the spiritual to your relationship, not only at work, generally, with your friends, everything connected, of course, to your morality. And that's what we tried. And somehow we tried to give this message to our organization. We did it a little bit covertly. I had to, because I had a number of hotels in Muslim countries and so on. We did it covertly. But again, even all that, why wouldn't we? And here's why we wouldn't. Get this is the last message. But now you want to finish early. But if somebody wants to ask me a question, I'm happy to answer it. Why wouldn't we? Because we don't make that decision. Everything in life is a decision. Excellence, again, is a decision for high intent. Why wouldn't we make, in all those aspects, decisions for high intent? Everything is a decision. I said earlier, I'm in love with my wife. I made a decision to stay in love with my wife. Not only love her, but truly stay in love with my wife all my life. And we are. Now, we have to work on that. Before I drive into the driveway of my home, I have a gate, I have to stop for a few seconds. That's the moment when I say, God, help me to really treat my wife with total excellence. I love this woman. That's a process that I make to be sure that I stay connected and do that. It's a decision. Everything is a decision. Whatever you do is a decision. It's not a decision of somebody else. It's your decision. Your destiny is the decisions that you make. And we realize that, and we try to help our employees and try to have an organization where we support that. Your decision. I have a good friend. I have a home in Germany. We were talking about before. I haven't been there a couple of years because of this darn Corona stuff. But I have a great friend over there with whom I go jogging. I don't run them. I used to be a crazy runner. That's why I can't run anymore. That's why because my feet are destroyed. But anyway, now we go walking for a couple of hours, 2-3 hours, through the forest, through the vineyards and so on. He is a proud atheist. He always wants to discuss the subject with me. Always. And at this morning, I really didn't feel like it. Please, Stefan, I said, don't start this stuff again. And he didn't. And so about 1.5 hours in, I said, oh great, I'm saved this morning. And when we finish our walk, I will thank him for that. In this moment he says, Horst, I just want to talk to you about, you with your Jesus and with your God, but you can't prove one thing about it. You can't prove that there is God. I said, well, that is a pretty silly comment because you can't prove that there isn't. So why is that even a discussion? But so with other words, it was a decision. I made a decision to believe. And you made a decision not to believe. Somehow, in some of us, it evolved that decision. We don't know when it was made, and some of them we know when it was made. But I told them at the time, but Stefan, you see, while I made the decisions, and the longer I'm getting away from the data and I made that decision, the more I just know. I know. But besides that, Stefan, I made a decision for hope, and you made it against hope. What a silly decision. That's how we make decisions? What a silly decision to make. Why not make the decision for excellence generally? And I want to repeat it. Excellence is never comes by accident. Don't wait for it. It's always high intent in everything you do. How excellent do I want to do that? Or if you don't look for high intent, you sentence yourself to the morass of mediocrity. It's nothing. Mediocrity is nothing. And all our awards and fulfillment is, and some of the philosophers said, to be happy really is to be fulfilled because you're connected to creating excellence. That excellence must be nearly everywhere. Certainly in your marriage, certainly at work, because that's what your life represents. And in other decisions how you deal with in everything else, decisions for excellence is decisions. Your destiny is making the right decision. And if in these decisions you involve Christ, you cannot make a mistake. Ask him, would God approve? And wow, you step away from some of your decisions. And and finally I wanted to say something to the guys here. Just to the guys. This is the biggest thing I have to offer today. The guys won't agree. The ladies will agree with that. But I really mean it, guys. I want to give you something. I really mean this. Because about 30 years ago, I went to a retreat, men's retreat with Tim Keller. Some of you may read Tim Keller, I don't know. And he changed my life. And what he did, I give you, because he changed my life to absolute, ultimate positive. He said, are you in love I'm asking you guys that now. Are you in love with the imperfections of your wife? And I got a shock. I said, no. I hate it when she's 5 minutes late. I hate it. And I said, why? And afterwards I went in my room and contemplated, why? But he asked me something, asked something else, said something else. Guys, and I'm going to say that to you. I did it in the meantime. It is unbelievable what it did. Changed very much of my life. Guys, spend a quiet moment with your wife. When you have a quite good moment going, maybe you have a glass of wine together, unless you're a Baptist. No, at home you can have it. No, at home. And look in the eye and say, how can I be a better husband to you? Do it. And after she cries, she will tell you. Guys, do it. Do it. Continuous improvement. Guys, if we don't continuously improve, we end up in mediocrity. And the most important institution in this world, the only one that is God-ordained, marriage, why wouldn't we improve that? How do you improve it? Unless you improve for each other. Look in the eyes and say, how can I do it? I did it. And man, wow, do I have a great marriage. Wow. You know, after she told me, I told her a little bit how she could be better. Sure. But that's what it is, guys. Individually, for the company or in a marriage, good luck, everybody.